Spoiler warning ahead for Squid Game Season 1. He's everyone's favorite Gambu, Player 1, Oh Il-nam, but behind that old, seemingly innocent facade is what many have argued is a criminal mastermind. But I'm here to tell you, don't believe those lies. Player 1 did nothing wrong. In this video, I'll be laying out the case for why Il-nam's bad rap is unwarranted and how his decisions throughout the game, even ones that lead to murder, are actually benevolent. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and if you need a refresher on the show, check out my Squid Game ending explained. I should first mention that my argument here isn't that Il-nam is perfect, far from it. Every human is flawed, and this is represented throughout our colorful cast of characters. Song-woo is arguably the worst of the lot, lying about knowing one of the games in advance, tricking Ali with a fake bag of rocks resulting in his death, and the icing on the cake, throwing someone off the glass bridge. Hell, even Gi-yeon exploits Il-nam's quote-unquote dementia to avoid defeat in the marble game. What I'm getting at here is that Il-nam is far from the most evil character on the show. In fact, he shows a lot of remorse and compassion, but more on that in a bit. As we find out in the series' final episode, Player 1 is the founder of Squid Game, a game in which contestants battle for their lives for prize money. And here is the first reason Oh Il-nam did nothing wrong. The games are voluntary. Unlike similar death-style games like Battle Royale, Alice in Borderland, or even the Hunger Games, contestants are given the opportunity not to play. We see this with Gi-yeon, who's given a card to enter. He doesn't have to go, he does it on his own free will. Even when he gets to the games, he signs a waiver which is juxtaposed to the one he signed under duress from a thug he owed money to in episode 1. Gi-yeon and the other contestants did everything voluntarily. I'll also address the argument they didn't know they might die in the first game later on in the video. And if this wasn't enough, there's rule number 3. Contestants can choose to end the games if the majority of players agree. Il-nam actually becomes the deciding vote in ending the game. If he was some bloodthirsty maniac, he would never have voted to end it. That's because Il-nam has an unspoken moral code about how the game should be run, who should be able to compete, and, when it comes to him as a player, minimally affecting the outcome. The game's contestants aren't chosen at random. Il-nam actually wants those who need the money to participate. In fact, there is a screening process of sorts done through men like this guy, who we see engage Gi-yeon in a game of dakji. This ensures contestants who take part really need that money, and the prize money, along with how it is distributed, is equally noble. As we learn in episode 2, the total prize pool is 45.6 billion won, or roughly 38.5 million US dollars. That's more than enough to change someone's life, and no matter the outcome of the game, money will be given out. If, for example, the contestants decide to end the game, the families of the deceased will be given 100 million won. Il-nam doesn't have to do that, but he does, even though these contestants voluntarily chose to be here. Players are even given the chance to come back to the games, knowing it could result in their deaths. Episode 2 is titled Hell, and shows us the backstory of several of these characters. For them, life in the outside world is more of a hell than playing the actual game. Il-nam is merely giving them an opportunity under their own volition to change the course of their lives in a world which has been so unfair to them. But what sets Il-nam apart is that he actually plays the game. He puts his own life at risk in order to play. Now, I've seen a few articles about how Il-nam supposedly had the doll in the red light green light game programmed so that it wouldn't kill him. I don't believe this for a few reasons. I went back and watched the scene multiple times, and you can clearly see that Il-nam does get scanned, and there are no indications that he moves while on red light, which would have resulted in his death. But I think the point at which Il-nam could have easily died was the tug-of-war game. His team was clearly outmatched in strength, and even with his technique they used to win the game, they barely win. If Il-nam was rigging these games to win, this was definitely not the play. But for Il-nam, it's not about winning. He actually exits the game after faking his death in episode 6. In episode 3, Il-nam even thanks Gi-yeon for showing him the licking technique in the honeycomb challenge. Plus, Il-nam could have chosen the easy triangle shape, but went with the star. This is a guy who isn't afraid of a challenge. But perhaps the strongest evidence that he didn't rig the red light green light game is that it would take the fun out of it. On his deathbed, Il-nam talks about the reason for both starting the games and participating in them. fun. As an extremely rich man, Il-nam felt that nothing in life was fun anymore. There was no challenge, no fight, nothing. If he wanted something, he could easily buy it. He has this great line where he says the one thing that extremely poor and extremely rich people have in common is that, for both of them, life is not fun. If Il-nam rigged the games, it would take away that fun. There's no fun in winning a game you know you're going to win. Also, if there was no chance of death for him, Il-nam would have risked exposing himself to the other players. There are also multiple times in the show where the frontman espouses the virtues of having fair and equal games, so when it's discovered that one of the contestants has been given secret information about the upcoming game, that player is eliminated. During episode 4, it is Il-nam who stops the riot from killing everyone in the dormitory. While this massacre is going on, the soldiers merely wait for instructions, letting the killing continue, but it's only when Il-nam screams out for the killing to stop that frontman sends in the army. I personally think this is because Il-nam believes this is not what the games are about. We can see him visibly upset in the aftermath. He even agrees to keep night watch for his team in the aftermath should another attack happen. Il-nam also forges a relationship with Gi-yeon, something he probably shouldn't have done if he genuinely wanted to see these players killed. In episode 2, when they're in the outside world, Il-nam happens to show up where Gi-yeon is and even shares a pack of noodles with him. What a sweetheart. And 2 episodes later, Il-nam shows compassion while Gi-yeon recounts the story of his friend at the car plant being murdered by police. What I'm getting at here is that Il-nam isn't the soulless character that a show like this could have easily portrayed him as. There is humanity to him, and this is shaped by a moral code that acts as the backbone to the games. But the connection between these two players really shines in episode 6, Gambu, a Korean slang word roughly meaning friendship. Il-nam ends up giving his player jacket to Gi-yeon after Gi-yeon gave his own to cover up his pants. He lets Gi-yeon win the marble game even though Gi-yeon tried to exploit his dementia. In essence, Il-nam forgives him here, a forgiveness and compassion given to Gi-yeon based on the kindness he showed him throughout the series and for, quote, giving him a good experience. The last episode, however, is where we get the most insight into who Il-nam really is. This provides the backstory for why he created the games and additional insight into his worldview. Il-nam believes we make our own choices, just like the drunk man outside who chose to drink and nearly kills himself in the cold. He so believes that humanity is not good that he bets Gi-yeon his life that no one will help the drunk man. And this, in my opinion, is his biggest flaw. He simply has a misguided view of humanity. It's partially why he doesn't feel any guilt for the thousands of contestants killed over the years. They chose to be there. They chose money over life. So who is really to blame in this twisted game? The man who created it or the contestants who willfully choose to play it? Should the drunk man blame the alcohol or himself for choosing to drink it? You can see how it gets a bit more complex here. There's also this beautiful irony between Il-nam and the drunk man, a man who is literally sitting and dying, juxtaposed with what Il-nam says in episode 2.
이렇게 죽을 날만 기다리다가
Now, the main argument of this video is that Il-nam did nothing wrong, and you could say that he is the one responsible for all these deaths, but at the end of the day, the contestants voluntarily chose to take that risk. And you might say, well, they didn't know they'd die in the first round, but they were expressly told that if they follow the rules, they would not be harmed. So those who didn't follow the rules, i.e. moved during the red light game, were killed, and any liability toward Il-nam would be negated because of the player consent forms. A consent form which clearly states in Rule 2 that players who refuse to play will be eliminated. Any of the contestants could have specifically asked what eliminated meant, but none of them do. The real gray areas here that I'm sure I'm going to hear about in the comments will likely fall on our own subjective opinions on what is right and wrong, and that's the fun of these types of videos. One man's right is the other man's wrong, but I want to hear what you think. Am I totally off here and Il-nam is evil incarnate, or is there a different way of looking at things? Remember, all of you are my Gambu, and please be kind to each other in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.